Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Young, and I am the Chief Officer for Communications, Culture, and Partnerships at When We All Vote. This Siempre, Raising Our Voice mentorship course is inspired by the HBO original documentary, Siempre Luis, a portrait of the pioneering activist, Luis A. Miranda Jr. I'm joined today by Jamira Burley and Gabby Forbes, and we'll be discussing how to use your voice without a vote. All right, ladies, I'm so excited to talk with you both today. You look lovely from Miami. And Jameer, where are you joining us from again?
I'm in New
Where are you?
York.
New York, New York, the great city of New York, where Luis actually lives. So that's awesome. So we want to make sure that we are talking about all the different ways in which we can use our voices in each and every election, depending on whether or not we either actually can go vote because we're 18 or older, and for those who can't. Everybody plays an active role, and that is why this is so incredibly important. When We All Vote is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that was launched by Michelle Obama in 2018, and we are on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase voter participation in each and every election. We absolutely cannot do any of that if we do not tap into younger voters and high schoolers, especially. So that's why I'm so glad Gabby is here today, who is a part of our My School Votes program, which is a K through 12 program that really works on figuring out how do we create an opportunity through curriculum for young Americans to learn about voting and civic engagement. But then for those folks who are in high school, like Gabby, how do we create that pipeline to ensure that she votes for the first time at 18? Because we know that when you vote for the first time at 18, you are more likely to become a lifelong voter. And Gabby, who is 17, who cannot vote in this election, is doing so much as a My School Votes Fellow. And we're so proud of all the wonderful work that she's done and all the innovative work that she's done. So, with that, let us get right into the discussion. My first question would be for younger voters who historically, have low voter turnout, and that's mostly because of information barriers. We know about 23% of Americans did not vote 18 to 24 years old, did not vote in 2018 because they missed the voter registration deadline. And another quarter of them missed the election because nobody asked them to vote. But those we know that there's historically low voter turnout through in Gen Z. But what are some of the ways in which we can help to combat that and ensure that more Gen Zers know how important their voices are and they use it in each and every election? And I'd like to start with you, Gabby, because of all the work you're doing with us. And I want to know your perspective. What can we do to make sure that we're bringing more of them to the fold to make sure they actually vote in each and every election?
I really like how you said it's a miscommunication, that communication barrier. And the best way to tackle that is literally starting those conversations. With a part of My School Vote, I've been going into my classes and other classes in my school, just catalyzing that conversation about voter registration, about the things that's going on in the world, and then just a very important question of what do you care about? And there are some who aren't aware of what's going on in the world. And then that's when it's my job to educate them on there's a state voter registration deadline. There is you have to register months before the actual polls. And they don't know that. There was a lot of people that I met who, yeah, I'm voting this year. Okay, did you register? I have to register. And it's like, so that has definitely been a conversation I had to start a lot. And I just urge everyone to just have that conversation with your friends, with your family members, and to just talk to them about what's going on.
Absolutely. It all starts with that first conversation. And as we like to say it when we all vote, it all starts literally with you because you are the best influencers and the people in your lives. So I want to turn it to you, Jamira, though, to answer that question. I know that you work really closely. You're an activist and you're a consultant with Next Gen, which is an organization really focused on the youth vote. This is something that you work on day in and day out. I'd love to know your perspective around this issue as well.
Yeah, no, I would definitely piggyback off of Gabby because I think, young people have a desire to be a part of the process. They want to be informed. They want to be active. And so our goal as adults, as leaders in the space is to ensure that they have access to all the information that they need. But also is also to remind young people that there are other ways to be engaged in local politics and social justice even beyond the election process. And that is informing and being a part of policy making, that's being a part of like organizing folks within their community to be more active, and also just making sure that they're having very serious and honest conversations with their peers and family members about the issues that are impacting their community. Because although they might not be able to vote yet, they still can inform their family members and other adults in their lives to help transform how they themselves show up to the ballot box.
Yes, and I don't think there's anything more powerful than you telling your parents and they're not doing something right. So if you see your
Exactly.
parents not voting, for those young people who are going to be watching this, you know to at least check them on that, and you have a special voice to do that. So, Gabby, for those young people that do want to become civically engaged, can you tell us about some of the work that you've done with us and what inspired you to do it?
That's such a beautiful question. What inspires me is knowing that I'm not alone. To know that there's thousands of kids across this country doing the same work that I'm doing, if not more. And to know that I have to represent my family, myself, and my community. And being a young Black woman, I know that challenges will be ahead. And I just want to make sure that I stand true to who I am. I speak when I feel like I need to say something, and to just be a confident person. And definitely the Black Lives Matter movement has inspired me so much to know that there is work that needs to be done, change that needs to happen. And I know that with everything in my power and capability, I will contribute to that goal. No matter the age, I'm a 17. I know that everything I'm doing now is going to make a better society and make a better future. And knowing that what is going on right now, that I can make a difference, so it doesn't have to be that way. And I know I'm not alone in that process to make it a reality.
See, Gabby for president 2020.
Yes, that's amazing, because there's no other group that will be more impacted by this election than young people. So we all got to play our role. So good for you, Gabby. So yeah, and I just want to tap into a little bit more how you actually engage with folks on social media. We're oversubscribing right now because of COVID-19. Everybody has an Instagram. Everybody has a TikTok. Can you tell us about some of that outreach, that work, and then how others can just use their platforms in general?
Yeah, our social media campaign has been definitely the most fun part about it, because our audience, our target is students. And what do students be on most of the time? Social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. These are all things that we're constantly on. So in the middle of you scrolling through memes, celebrities, you're going to see that post about voter registration. You're going to get that DM about voter registration. And you're going to get it from people your age, because it's always different to hear from someone who is experiencing the same things as you rather than an adult telling you. So what we've been doing is sending out massive DMs campaigns across the country to alumni of our schools, teachers, and students in our counties, sending them registration links, sending them information about just basic knowledge about voting, reminding them that the deadline for depending your state is coming. And we've been getting a lot of good responses. Some of them are super funny. Some of them are like, okay, what is more about it? And then some of them just kindly pass, and that's okay. So we just keep the DMs going, and this made a massive outreach.
How many people have you DM'd thus far?
Ooh, I don't want to tell you the wrong number, but I know it's in the thousands.
In the thousands. Well, that's awesome. So everybody could DM. Everybody could just DM their friends and say, hey, are you registered? I know at When We All Vote, we have a ton of resources, whenweallvote.org, for people to get registered, to make their voting plans. And that's so critical and so important. And in this influx of when we're receiving all of this information, and Jamira, I'm going to turn this to you. You're hearing people literally say vote twice, which is wrong. You're hearing a lot about vote by mail, which is mostly inaccurate. We're hearing all of these different messages. Besides organizations like When We All Vote to come to, go to get all the critical information you need, is there somewhere else too that you would recommend, especially as we're combating false information? What would you recommend to young people to seek out or source information to really keep up with what's happening and helping them to make their voting plans?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I'm super excited to hear Gabby remix things, sliding in the DMs in a whole new way, um, especially at a time where so many people are hungry for information, right? They want to hear information from a trusted source. And oftentimes another peer can provide that information. And so for folks who are trying to learn more information, and not only about the candidates, but also about the issues and what's at stake, it's really important that we read beyond the headlines is one, right? Ensuring that we're not clicking on clickbait for clickbait's sake and sharing false information with our peers and family members. It's also important that we check the sources, that we reevaluate why specific art, I should say, writers write specific topics and from the angle in which they do. But also, there's a ton of organizations out there that are sharing relevant information, Next Gen being one of them, providing information on the topics that are most important to young people, specifically young people of Black and Latino race. And as well as looking at other organizations like People for the American Way Foundation, Young People For, there is the Young Elected Official Network, there's Black Youth Vote, there's so many information sources out there. And so the goal is to not only seek that information to learn more about the issues and candidates, but also share that with your network and ensure that they're up to date so that when they show up to the ballot box, they're as informed as possible. And also, there's a lot of false information out there regarding the process of voting. There's no legitimate data that says voting by mail is not legit and that your vote won't be counted. And so I think you should choose which the best option for you. So whether that's showing up on early voting or showing up in person on election day or using your right to actually vote by mail, you have the ability to do so and choose the right decision for you.
Absolutely. And I think for those who aren't of voting age yet, there's still ways to tap into this, from the DM sliding with Gabby and with My School Votes, to really helping to make sure that your family is prepared and ready to vote. Everybody has and can play a role in this. And I think what's really, really huge right now that I don't think a lot of people are tapping into is the fact that the Latinx community has really, really huge numbers when it comes to being a really strong voting bloc in this country. It's growing and it's growing and it's growing, especially Gen Z amongst the Latinx community. And Jamira, I was wondering, has Next Gen done any research as to, some of those numbers and some of the power when it comes to Latinx voters and also helping them to make their voices heard? I know us at When We All Vote, we're making sure that we're tapping into that community. And we're partnered with wonderful organizations like Voto Latino and others to make sure that everybody understands the power of their voice. But the numbers are outstanding. And we just have to make sure that everybody really understands how critically important their voices are. Every community, especially the Latinx community. But just didn't know if you guys had something else to share about what those numbers and what it looks like when it comes to Latinx voters.
No, I would say it's huge, right? I would say that the Latinx community provide a great opportunity for us to, again, not look at communities as monolithic. There's also a generational divide where the issues look very different for the older generation versus millennials and Gen Zs. And so this is a critical time for organizations, for policymakers to make a deep investment in those communities and to talk about issues beyond just immigration, right? The Latino community care everything about economic development. They care about education. They care about so many different issues. And I think what we're learning at Next Gen, very similar to what we are experiencing with the African American community, is that folks want information. They want to be a part of the process and they want to be approached and engaged far in advance of an election day vote. And so I think now and even after November 3rd, this is about how do we make deep investments to ensure that their voices are a part of the process. I think it's really important that the Latino community are a part of any transition team going into the next administration because they have so much insight and ideas for how they can improve the conditions of their community.
Yeah, I think far too often we see campaigns, parties, politicians really focus on minority communities as you get closer to the election day. And what we try to do at When We All Vote is that we try to start super duper early, and we did. We started literally at the beginning of 2019. Nobody wanted to talk to us then, but it was so critically important to at least start having that conversation so that we're talking about voting, not just when it's critical and when everybody has to go out to do it in 34 days, but rather when you're not even thinking about it, so that we can actually make a voting plan, because it's so incredibly important that everybody feels valued and everybody is involved, at the beginning. And I love what you said about the Latinx community, the Latino community, and the African American community not being a monolith. We are extremely diverse. And what is so, I think, beautiful, especially about the Latinx community, is that you have Black people, you have brown people, you literally have all people represented from all different countries, different walks of life, really a huge melting pot of culture. So from Afro Latinos to you literally have everybody. So it's so incredibly important that you do not talk to or target these communities late, because everybody has importance, everybody has a voice, and everybody has a different perspective. So a couple of things. Siempre, Luis was such a great documentary. I enjoyed watching it, and it showed us that we all can use our unique gifts and talents and voices to create change. And what we saw through Luis is that he's taken all that the world has given him and he's giving it back in such a positive way and trying to figure out how to enact and create change. And that's what you're doing, Gabby. You have been given a gift of a great personality. Clearly, you're super smart. I know you're about to go to college. You're on your way, but you're taking what the world has given you right now and you're giving it back. What inspired you to do this? What inspired you to get involved in this work? Because it's really special. Everybody doesn't do that.
That is such a beautiful question. Just looking at what was given to you in life and bringing it back to the community. Wow. So what inspires me the most is knowing that it's not just me when I do my work. I represent my family. I represent my community. I represent my heritage. I know that in the Black community, I need to be the best representation possible, and I need to do work in the image of them and know that I'm making my family proud and I'm making myself proud, knowing that I'm helping those in my community. And definitely the Black Lives Matter movement has empowered me and showed me that nothing's outside my limit, nothing's outside my reach that I can't manifest and bring into reality. And honestly, I definitely just things I've done in my life, period, as far as I have a very extensive theater background. Theater is my passion. I love it so much. And that just ties into my public speaking skills. And I like how you said, bringing what happened in your life to give back. So within my school votes, the kids that I've met, they're just the coolest people. Like, I feel like cool is not it's just an understatement of the type of people that I've met. And there's kids who aren't as social or extroverted, but can really work a computer and really make the best flyer. And that's how they contribute to my school votes. Me, like I said, I love theater. I love speaking to people. So I'm constantly calling people. Hi, are you students registered to vote? Or hi, my name is Gabrielle Forbes. I'm a part of my school votes. I just go on and just using the gifts that you were given to make a change in your society. That's a really beautiful thing.
Yes, that's so awesome. And I really love what you just said about a flyer. I think that we sometimes discredit things. We say, okay, that's not enough. My contribution is not enough. But if you know how to create a flyer and you know how to do graphics, that actually is something. We have tons of folks on our team who are creating graphics every day. So literally every voice counts, every gift counts. And it's so important that we figure out how to use our gifts and talents, just as Luis has, right? To do the same thing. And Jamira, you could be doing a ton of different things. You don't have to be an activist. You do not have to work with Next Gen. You could be working on the corporate side and really living your life in a completely and totally different way, but you choose to do this work. What has inspired you?
I would actually push back and say I had no choice, right? I think as Black women, particularly, we feel a deep responsibility to advocate for those who are the most marginalized, who are who are the most vulnerable within our society. And I think for me, especially, I'm a native of Philly, and I watched as so many of my relatives and family members both lose their life to gun violence and also to the criminal justice system. So I've always felt the need to reevaluate how systems are impacting Black and Brown communities. And so for me, this is the work that I live for, especially working in collaboration with young people, because they've always been at the forefront of change. They're always inspiring us to do better and to be the conscious of our communities. And so I don't know if I could ever picture myself doing anything else, just because we have so much work to be done. And Black women, as far as I'm concerned, has always been at the forefront of that.
You're right about that. But I will also say to you that there are a lot of people that know there's a lot of work to be done and are not doing it. So you are special in that regard. And I want you to own that. Everybody doesn't do this stuff. But we all can. And it doesn't have to be as big as Gabby. It doesn't have to be as big as Jamira. It could literally be whatever your contribution is. That could just be one DM. That could just be one graphic you post on your Instagram. That could be one TikTok. It literally does not have to be the world, right? But it's what is a contribution that you can do. So another thing that the documentary talked about and really illuminated is that art plays such a major role in the way in which we move culture forward, right? So the images that we see, the stories that we tell, we learn about other cultures, we learn about other people, we learn about other walks of life. We learn so many things through the art, and that's entertainment, that's television, that's movies, that's Broadway, that's everything, right? So I would love to know what stories would you both like to see told on television or in movies, especially when it comes to civic engagement? Because I believe that there are terrible stories being told around civic engagement. Not this documentary, though. This documentary is great, but I'm talking about like when you think about the way in which we talk about government, when you think about the way in which we talk about the White House or all these different things, it's always a little dark, if you have, or if I can say that. It's never positive. It's always shrouded in like there's some deception going on, as opposed to it being a place really for the people, right? So what are those stories? I have tons of stories I want to see told, but what are those stories around civic engagement would you like to see out there on television, unscripted, which means reality shows, or scripted? That's and regular shows that you normally watch, and then, movies. Is there anything that you'd love to see? I'll start with you, Gabby.
So I would love to see a documentary or a show or movie about how the youth has impacted the world. And I noticed that, like, when it comes to talking about civic engagement or politics or anything along that nature, they make it an adult's job, or they'll make it such like a far-fetched idea, like you have to have been in this since you were 5 years old, or straight out of, into the world, knowing about what's going on. And I just want them to make it more tangible. Like, this is something that you can do. You can do it right now. And it's whatever contribution that you have within your capabilities to do it, and it'll be greatly appreciated. Especially with there's a lot of students who have a passion, who have a fire for this, but feel intimidated by what's going on. But to just know that it's okay, that you can still do this. And my Florida organizer for my school vote, he always has the best quote. He says, "The students in my school votes are exceptional, but they're not the exception. We are not like super hybrid kids that just are like, we make mistakes. It's a trial and error, and you guys can do it just the same." And I feel like that's something that needs to be said and brought to the forefront, to know it is not an impossible job. It's not, it's hard work. Everything's hard work if you care about it, but just to know that you can still do it. And if whatever you can bring to the table, place it down with confidence and to ensure that I know that what I just did mattered.
Absolutely. So, Gabby, you actually tapped into my next question. So, the way I'm going to pose it to you, Jamira, is like, what do you want to see? And then how can young people right now use art to tell these stories, to make a difference, to push culture forward? Gabby tapped into it a little bit. There's so many creative young people that are, I think probably itching and really wanting to put art out there. And it could be in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be through television or film, or it could actually be literally a piece of art that you look at that you see that you're inspired by. But yeah, I would love to know, A, what do you want to see? And like, what is your, I guess, what is your word of advice to young people who want to use their art for change?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that I want to see. I think one thing I want to see more of on TV is that oftentimes we assume that leadership and that being a part of history is a one man or one woman's job, and it forgets about the entire team, the ecosystem around that person that enables for them to be successful, and also recognize that politicians and leaders oftentimes don't have all the answers. And so, what is that development of them listening to people, learning more about the history? And the second thing I want to see is that, oftentimes we look at policy here in the US, or we look at change here in the US, and we forget about the fact that a lot of our issues transcends border, culture, and race. And so how are we thinking about the policies we're promoting and we're advocating for here? How are we thinking about its implications around the world, and vice versa? Because we're all more connected than we think we are. In regards to art, it's so funny because I'm not a TikToker, but I'm a TikTok stalker. And I'm also, you know what I mean? Like, I don't make TikToks, but I get very, yeah. And young people are just like, they're like talking about science. They're talking about reproductive rights. They are really using different forms of entertainment and artistry to really dig deep into I think, very tough and hard to swallow conversations. And so for young people who are trying to figure it out, whether it's murals, whether it's music, whether it's just writing poetry, just do it. There's so much content out there that folks are hungry for more. We want to learn more. And oftentimes people can use their artistry to share more information about their stories, which I think stories have the ability to contextualize very serious issues in a way that the vast majority of us was never able to grasp. So I'm super excited for more art to come out there and more ways for young people to express the issues that they care about, but also their version of the world in which we hope to all create.
Absolutely. That you hit the nail on the head. There are so many different ways to tap in, but just do it. Don't let up, and don't give up your opportunity to use your voice, be that at the polls, if you're old enough, be that through your art, if you want to, and if you're inspired. I know that I grew up in a time, and Jamira, I know you probably did too, where we did not have Facebook. We did not have all of those different outlets. I used to write like little plays, and actually create programs and be a one woman show. And my parents would watch me because they are clearly crazy, and, really encourage that energy and that creativity through me. But now everybody has their own little platform that they can use to push that artwork out into the world. So it's so incredibly important. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. I hope that this conversation has inspired everybody to figure out ways in which they can use their gifts, their talents, their voices without a vote, or if you can vote with a vote, and to inspire those around you. One thing we like to say it when we all vote is, when you do vote, make sure you vote loud so that everybody can hear what you have to say. And that means you got to vote every single election, and you got to get ready to do it. And then if you can't, you got to help those who can. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for being a part of this conversation. We hope that you're inspired to use your voice to either vote loud, or to inspire others to do the same, or to create something that may push someone else forward, some sort of artwork, a picture, a post, whatever it is. Don't waste the opportunity to use your voice. Thanks for joining us today.